Blessed morning to you, members of the media and the viewing public. I extend a warm welcome to you to this morning's press conference convened by the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, Forestry and Marine Resources. My name is Karima Lewis, and I will be guiding you through today's discussion on the Government of Grenada's Land Tenure Regularization Program. In line with the Government of Grenada's steadfast commitment to fostering a sustainable, equitable, and prosperous Grenada for all, and in alignment with its manifesto pledge to initiate a comprehensive program aimed at granting land titles to families who have continuously inhabited government lands for residential, agricultural, and commercial purposes for a period exceeding 10 years, significant strides have been taken towards realizing this promise. Today, we are privileged to have with us key figures who play pivotal roles in driving forward this initiative. Joining us are Mrs. Gemma Bain Thomas, Administrative Executive within the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, Forestry and Marine Resources, and Mr. Philip Alexander, Technical Specialist in Land Administration at the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, Forestry and Marine Resources. To commence our proceedings, I invite Ms. Bain Thomas to provide insights into the project. Ms. Thomas.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lois. Good morning to members of the media, to viewers online here in Grenada and in the diaspora. Thank you for being with us. As Ms. Lois indicated, today is a significant day for the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, Forestry, Marine Resources, as we use this occasion to provide details to the nation on the Land Tenure Regularization Program and other land-related matters. We all know that matters relating to land and its administration or management always garner the interest of the people, since everyone wants a piece of the land they can call their own, but land is finite. Grenada is 133 square miles, or just over 85,000 acres, with a population of over 112,000. So we can do the math to see how much land is available to each of us. Today we are talking about Crown lands, or lands owned by the government. Government owns just about 10% of the land, with the other 90% being privately owned. So it is only a small portion of the lands that are within the portfolio of the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, Forestry and Marine Resources. Crown lands are governed by the Crown Land Act and the Crown Lands Rule, Chapter 73 of the Revised Laws of Grenada 2010. This act provides that the Governor General may, from time to time, grant, sell, exchange, or lease any of the Crown lands or any right or easement in or over them or any of them for such price or consideration or rent and for such estate or term of years and on such conditions and with such reservations, if any, as he or she may think reasonable. In keeping with the Act, over the years, citizens have been allotted Crown lands on terms and conditions that the Ministry considers to be very generous. The lands have been allocated for residential, agricultural, and commercial purposes. Many citizens who have been allotted such lands have paid or are in the process of paying for the lots in accordance with the prices and other terms and conditions approved by Cabinet and in keeping with the Crown Lands rules. In accordance with the rules, citizens who are allotted Crown lands have a period of 12 years to complete payments with a 5% annual interest on the remaining balance owed to the state. Additionally, over the years, citizens without legal authorization and without any formal arrangements to be on Crown lands, have taken up residency and have established themselves on these lots of lands, creating what is often referred to as squatters' communities. Squatter communities usually lack planning or adequate physical infrastructure, often creating risk to human health and the environment. Some citizens, on completion of the payments for the lots of Crown lands allotted to them, have received deeds of titles, but the vast majority have not. And therefore, this land regularization program is designed to address this vexing issue and to provide deeds of titles on terms approved by Cabinet to citizens legally occupying Crown lands. Citizens legally occupying Crown lands are those who went through the approved application process, for whom there is a Cabinet conclusion approving the lot of Crown land in their name. Such approval may or may not have been conveyed to them in writing, and they may or may not have commenced payment for the lots allocated. The program will be working from the records at the Lands and Surveys Department. The records are mostly manual, and the opportunity will be taken to develop a computerized system as part of the Land Tenure Regularization Program. For citizens occupying Crown lands for a period of 10 years with no legal authorization, that is, no Cabinet conclusion or letter of approval, the Land Tenure Regularization Program will develop a pathway to legal ownership. This will include documenting the parcel of lands, establishing the size of the lot, developing terms and conditions for legal ownership, and working with them to the point where they can be the legal owner of the plot of land. The Land Tenure Regularization Program is a huge undertaking for the ministry and the government. It is a policy directive of the government to provide land titles or deeds of ownership to families and individuals who have been continuously occupying government or Crown lands for residential, agricultural, and commercial purposes for over 10 years. Signifying its commitment, government in the 2023 and 2024 estimates of revenue and expenditure made budgetary allocations for land administration and management and a land tenure regularization program. In the latter part of 2023, the Ministry of Agriculture initiated the process with the surveying of certain Crown lands. We are happy today to announce the full-scale commencement of the land regularization program, formalizing Crown land titles. The program coordinator will provide more details on the administrative setup for the rollout of the program. As I said before, this is a huge undertaking by government and the ministry. In some countries where there is a land regularization program, the process is often externally funded to the tune of millions of dollars. However, this is a homegrown program being implemented by local people using local resources. The implementation of the Land Tenure Regularization Program will not be without its challenges. Some of the identified risks and challenges include the lack of cooperation and even legal challenges from some landowners, informal occupants or squatters, or other stakeholders, which may delay the program implementation process. Another risk is inaccurate records absence of land surveys or mapping errors, technical challenges with data collection, management systems, or documentation processes, and the lack of understanding of the program and thus resistance or opposition from occupants, squatters, or community members. The ministry, however, anticipates a successful implementation of this program over the next 2 or maybe more years. Stakeholder engagements, public relations, education, and sensitization will be a key feature to dispel any negative feelings or information circulated on the program. The success of the land tenure regularization program will depend in part on its acceptance by the populace. The ministry anticipates that there will be full cooperation by the population in the implementation of this program. And this is part of the reason we are here today providing details on the land tenure regularization program. Given the negative impact of the lack of land title by landowners and users, the economic and social benefits of land ownership, and the avenue to transfer generational wealth, this land tenure regularization program is very timely. By granting land titles to people residing on or occupying Crown lands who previously held no title, the project intends to 1. Provide legal recognition and documentation of land ownership to all eligible residents. 2. Enhance land governance and minimize land disputes. 3. Promote socio-economic development through secure land tenure. 4. Foster equity and sustainability in society. And 5. Streamline and regularize land tenure processes in Grenada. This program, when completed, will grant land rights to hundreds of citizens within the Tri-Island state. This significant program will support many Grenadians who have been living or occupying Crown lands without official documentation by ensuring their security of tenure and by helping them adjust to the changing dynamics of development in the age of transformative policies and development. Noting the lack of planning and physical infrastructure on some Crown land settlements, the land tenure regularization program will in some instances work with the Ministry of Infrastructure and Physical Development with a view to enhancing these settlements or developing new settlements. I want to use this opportunity to urge everyone to familiarize themselves fully with the program and to support this effort to formalize Crown land titles. I encourage all occupiers of Crown lands to cooperate with the field officers, other officers, and the ministry in ensuring a smooth and successful implementation of this important and transformative program. Before I close, I just want to touch on one other matter which also touches and concerns Crown lands. In May 2018 and January 2020, the Government of Grenada, via Cabinet conclusions, took the decision to award 2 of our athletes who performed well on the international sporting stage, along with a coach with passes of Crown lands. To date, a deed of title has not been handed over to these sportsmen. I wish to assure these sportsmen that the ministry has now identified the passes of Crown lands and is working towards honoring the commitment made to them. I thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bean Thomas, for your insights into the program. Members of the media, the viewing public, we beg your indulgence. We will be back shortly with more information on the land regularization program.
Save water. Save water. Save water. Save water. Save water. Save water. For me and you. Save water. For the future too. Save water. Every job we can. Save water. For the Caribbean. Save water. Save water. Save water, invest in making things better. Make things better, make dams, reservoirs and pipelines stronger. New policies and plans to take action. Educate the entire nation. Water is a finite resource that needs urgent recourse. Save water. Save water.
For me and you.
Save water.
For the future too.
Save water.
Every drop you can.
Save water.
For the Caribbean.
Save water. Save water.
The whole Caribbean in the same climate.
Same problems and same challenges.
Together we'll find the solutions.
Together we'll take action.
I want to secure Caribbean.
It's a crucial mission.
We need some urgent action.
Leaders of our nation. Save water. Save water. Save water. For me and you. Save water. For the future too. Save water. Every job you can. Save water. For the Caribbean. Save water. Save water. Save water.
Don't let your water bill get too high.
Save water. Save the water that falling from the sky. Save water. Full up your blueberries. Save water. Full up all your berries. Save water. Full up your blueberries. Save water. Full up all your berries. Save water.
Are you thinking about
Welcome back. This program is led by a special team tasked with ensuring that the timeline is met in this initiative. This morning, we are also joined by Ms. Judian Thomas, Program Coordinator for the Land Tenure Regularization Program. At this juncture, we would like to invite her to make some remarks. Ms. Thomas.
The awarding process for the Land Regularization Tenure Program has been successful. So far, management has remunerated 21 field officers, 3 senior field officers, and a consolidative administrative staff, which is inclusive of an IT information technology professionals and technical assistants. The program has facilitated a number of exercises, which includes introduction to the program, customer service and deportment, conflict resolution, and workload and report. In addition, they have been exposed to legislative acts that governs the legitimacy of this project, which is inclusive of the Crown Land Act, Possessory Title Act, and anti-squatting regulations. These protective measures were instated to ensure the legitimacy of the project. Training are continuous. This measure is taken to improve and measure the efficacy and the performance we aim to serve the populace of Grenada. We are requesting stakeholders to kindly cooperate as we embark on this journey to provide land security to citizens of our country. The field officers will be strategically zoned and service to the general populace. They'll be undergoing surveys to ensure the legitimacy of the housing systems. Supervisors will be provided for support. we are once again encouraging the general populace to please cooperate so we can secure a successful venture.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. A smooth administrative process is crucial to the success of this initiative. Technical specialist in land administration at the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, Forestry and Marine Resources, Philip Alexander, will lend his voice to this cause. Mr. Alexander, the floor is yours.
Greetings to our nation and the people who are listening to us, media, all and sundry. I am very happy today to be sharing in this forum on this issue of land tenure regularization. It's something that is very close to me, and it's something that I think means a lot to the people of Grenada. Coming on the heels of Labor Day, land, labor, and capital working together to change the lives, livelihoods, economic development of the individual families who are going to be directly affected, and improving the land tenure security situation in our country, while at the same time giving the opportunity for wider economic development and advancement of our society. This, in my mind, are the fundamental benefits of economic empowerment of our people and growth in the national economy that this program engenders and offers to the people of Grenada. Grenada has a very unique set of land policy issues. One, we are challenged, as Ms. Bain Thomas indicated, by the number of parcels. For a relatively small country, today we have on our tax roll over 87,000 parcels of land. And we must give credit to the people who have gone before us. And there are three significant events, in my mind, that has given benefits to that effect. One, the Land for the Landless program under the Eric Matthew regime. That significantly impacted the number of families who owned land in Grenada. In the revolution, there was a program called the Idle Lands for the Idle Hands program. Again, that impacted greatly the number of parcels available to ordinary people. And under the Braffett administration, with George Brizan as Minister of Lands, they had the Model Farms program, which significantly and greatly impacted, and more particularly, agricultural uses of land. And those three programs, in my mind, is largely responsible for the land tenure as we have it in Grenada today. What has happened in the ensuing period is some weaknesses in our land administration and management systems. And this is what this program is meant to correct. And we hope that this program will benefit the people that are most needed in the circumstances, because we have today a significant number of persons, large numbers, who have been occupying and utilizing Crown lands and other lands. And those persons have not been in a position to fully optimize the benefit of lands. And that is what this program is about. So I am open and prepared for further questions, and we will make any points necessary that will bring clarity to anybody that has questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. At this moment, we are going to open the floor for questions from members of the media. Before you pose your questions, we kindly ask that you introduce yourself and indicate the media house that you are representing. We do have a question from Mikey Hutchinson. You can go ahead and pose your question.
Good morning to the panelists. So question is in relation to a timeline. Is there a timeline for the expiration of the extension of the branch to persons who are squatting or land squat? That's my.
Mikey, can you repeat your question, please?
Okay, sure. Are you able to hear me?
I'm hearing you, yes.
Okay, so is there a timeline for the land tenure regularization program? Does it expire at any point? So does people have like a deadline to regularize their status on those lands, especially those who are squatting?
Okay, so I will answer this question. We indicated that the program will be for about 2 years in the first instance. We propose to deal with the occupiers of Crown land in different categories. So we have those who have completed payments, they will be addressed first. All occupiers of Crown lands who have over the years made all the payments, and we have the records to prove they were given there's a cabinet conclusion, and so they will be the first set of people to be addressed. Then we'll move on to category number 2, which is people who are on Crown lands. They have been legally approved to be there. Some have made payments, but they have not completed. Some have not made payments, although they were given letters of approval with the details of the amount to be paid. This will be category 2. Then we are going to move on to the informal occupants or the squatters who have no legal authority, in the sense that there is no cabinet conclusion, there is no letter of approval. And so within the 2 years, we anticipate that we should be able to deal with these 3 categories of people. However, given the amount of people, and when we go on the ground, when our field officers go on the ground, we might be discovering additional challenges. We are open to the project going on for a 3rd year. But we anticipate within the next 2 years to have everything regularized.
Okay, thanks for that response. A follow-up is, following that 2 or 3 years, as you explained, let's say persons who refuse to, to regularize their status on the Crown lands, what happens then?
Well, we have the Crown Land Act, and the Crown Land Act, and also the anti-squatting regulations. So squatting is not legal. And if you are given an opportunity to regularize yourself, we expect people to come forward, because you are now being given an opportunity to get a title for the land. You'll be given a pathway to legal ownership. So we expect people to come forward. Following that, government has the option to repossess.
Okay,
Any further questions, Mikey?
I'll yield for other questions, and then probably I'll come back again.
Okay, we have a question from Mrs. Rena Pear. You can go ahead and pose your question.
Good morning to the table. Rena Pear Thomas, GBN News. I just have 2 questions. The first one, what should persons expect? Should persons who are aware that they are either squatters or maybe they didn't complete their payment, should they come to the Ministry of Agriculture to rectify the issue, or should they expect someone to come to them and let's say address what is happening with the Crown lands?
So for the people who have paid and those who have legal authorization, a letter from the ministry, but they may not have completed payment, or they may not have started payment, we have records in the ministry, and so we will be reaching out to all these citizens, that is those who have paid or are in the process of paying. These are the ones we have records for. As it relates to the informal occupants, we may or may not have detailed records. And so we know the settlements, we know the government crown lands. Our field officers will be outside there going to these crown lands, speaking to the people, engaging them. We may have individual meetings, we may have community meetings and so forth, encouraging them to register with us so that we can reach the point where we actually work out details with them so as to create that pathway to legal ownership. We may not know all the squatters, so we'll have to detail them as we go along.
Any additional questions from you, Rena?
Did you hear my question?
Can you repeat it, please? Thank you.
What about crown lands that is occupied by a group of number of families? So let's say we know that sometimes these lands are occupied for more than 30 years and it would have been passed on to various number of families, let's say children and grandchildren. How you intend to deal with that?
So the land may have been given to one person. Let's say the grandpa may have been given the land. So the only person who has legal authority over the land is the person to whom the allotment was made, in whose name the allotment was made. So as we go outside there, we anticipate meeting, because of the amount of years that this has been going on, meeting people who may have died, and the children, grandchildren, and so they are on the land. There will be a process, because to have a name change, it must be a process going back through cabinet, and so we will have to do all of that. In cases where there are maybe more than one children occupying the land, you will have to have some level of mediation and so as to determine in whose name the land should be, because when you look at it, you might have a quarter acre of land and 2 or 3 houses on the quarter acre of land. Is this ideal? Is this the type of settlement that we want? Is this the type of conditions that we want our people to be living on? And even as we go through the settlements, as I said in my presentation, you might notice a lack of planning, of physical planning, and you need to rearrange so that you have proper road to the land, proper amenities, so that you can have access and people could have a better quality of life. So that it may mean that you have to encourage, if you have maybe 4 or 5 children on a piece of land, you may have to encourage some maybe to resettle somewhere else so as to create a nice, decent, well-ordered settlement. And that is why we are going under the slogan, formalizing Crown land titles. So we are not just giving title, but we are trying to create some nice formal settlements for these occupants.
Thank you,
I have one question.
Go ahead.
If that's okay. We've noticed that squatters, well, we get a sense that most of the squatters are persons who may not be able to afford to pay for the land or have difficulty in paying for the land. Now, recently we had an amnesty where persons were given the opportunity to get rid of the increase or burden of money that they have to pay for the land. How is the program going to help these individuals or work with these individuals to pay for the land when they get the documents?
Well, based on the Act, the current Act, you have 12 years to pay for the land, and there's a 5% interest. From the records at the ministry, because of lack of payment, some people interest is more than the original cost of the land. And so the issue of waiver of interest will come up. Waiver of interest could only be done by the cabinet. So we will have to make recommendations to cabinet as it relates to waiver of interest. But land always appreciates. So someone would have gotten a piece of crown land maybe 10, 15 years ago and paid $12,000 for that piece of crown land. But the interest maybe is worth maybe they owing $20,000 for it now. But if you look at the market value of that piece of land, it may well worth $50,000 because land appreciates. So we will have to deal with issues of waiver on a case-by-case basis. As it relates to the squatters, there are a lot of squatters who are gainfully employed. Yes, there may be those who, for whatever reason, may be unemployed and are unable to meet the cost. That will be addressed. But a number of the people who are on crown lands without legal authorization are gainfully employed, and a payment plan could be worked out. We, however, are of the view at the program, at the land regularization program, that notwithstanding the provisions of the Crown Lands Act for 12 years of payment, that it might be in the interest of people to pay off earlier. Don't delay to wait 12 years to get your deed and title. And people who are able to do it, will encourage them, if you can pay off now, pay off, and you get your deed and title immediately, because this paper in your hand opens avenues for you for economic and social development.
Thank you for your question, Rena. Ms. Linda Straker, you are free to ask your question.
Good morning, and thank you very much. My question has to do with in the opening statement, Mrs. Bain Thomas mentioned that of all the land in Grenada, the government or the state just own 10% of that land. Can she tell us how much of that 10% government intend to keep to itself in the interest of forest reserve and watershed areas, water protection, to ensure that there is we have water, and to give like gifts, like how she mentioned about the sporting athletes? How much of that 10% government intend to keep for itself?
I can assist in answering this question, Ms. Straker. Greetings. First of all, the government of Grenada wishes to encourage ownership of land title in Grenada, and that is what this program is all about. With a 10% current ownership, a large part of that 10% is in this form of, as you mentioned correctly, forest reserve, and we do have several, including the Grenada and the dry forests in other parts of the country, in Livera and so. So you have a significant portion of that 10% in those holdings. You do have other large holdings like the state farms, which also form a significant part of that 10%. So you have a limited amount of that 10% that is available for other uses. Those other uses is probably where we would be best able to help. One, we have significant or relatively large amounts of land that are already allocated to persons or to the people in different sectors. They might be residential, they might be agricultural, they may be even commercial. Those tracts of land and their regularization is what this program is mainly meant to help people to release that latent value and latent advantages that are currently underutilized in these parcels of land. So the program is meant mainly to empower those occupants and to help them to release that capital value that is latent in those parcels of land, and not necessarily in and of itself to reduce from that 10%, because we want to keep as much land in state occupation. And you must have recognized that in a recent past, the government of Grenada has made it a policy position in the Grenadines and on the Grenadines Beach not to sell freehold title, but to enter into leases in order to retain as much of the freehold title in the state as we speak.
Ms. Straker, do you have an additional question?
Yes, I do have a follow-up. I didn't get the answer I want, whether the cabinet has decided we're going to have 5 or 10%, but be that as it may. You see, I asked that question from the background of the government of Grenada signing various environmental conventions, giving a commitment, in some cases I think up to 25%, to be as forest reserve, watershed area, places just to protect our environment with all the technicalities that goes with it. That was the background for that question. My other question has to do now with Mrs. Bain Thomas mentioned in responding to another question about if an area is too tightly packed and maybe children or people may have to relocate. In coming up with that, has the cabinet or the government already decided where can be some of the new human settlement areas? Because we're doing a project for 2 years that may impact some people that has to relocate. During that period, where are you going to, has the cabinet decide where they could be relocated to?
Not as yet. In a recent symposium that we had, we looking at Crown Lands and the Crown Lands Act. One of the recommendations from the participants was that government should maybe seek to acquire more lands. This is something we are in the process of submitting that report to cabinet, and it's something that they will have to seriously consider. But we do not have a decision from cabinet as yet as to where we can relocate some of the settlements. As we said, going back to the availability of Crown lands, even as we speak now, there are a lot of applications on file for Crown lands, but we cannot address them because of the limited amount that we have. So once the land regularization process is completed, we may be able to identify Crown lands that are available and that could be made available to nationals looking for land. Grenada is very mountainous. The whole interior of the land of the island is mountains, and our forest reserves and all of these take up a lot. So there's not really much left for government to allocate to people.
Just as a follow-up to that, within that 2-year period, I expect quite a significant number of people to come in. What would happen to people who are currently building homes on the fringes of forest reserve area or right into it, as well as places like public places owned by the state, like cemeteries and so? What will happen to these people? Would they get the title deed, or would they be asked to relocate close to pastures and things like that?
It depends. A lot will depend on the land area, the uses the land is being put to, and also consideration will be given to the land use policy. As you may be aware, there is a land use policy that was approved in 2021, I believe, but has not been implemented. We are in the process of reviewing that land use policy, because there were gaps that were identified in the policy. And so that land use policy would also impact on the uses of the land and where we can have residential, agricultural, and so lands. So we anticipate by the end of this year to have a functional land use policy, and it will impact on lands that are made available for housing or agriculture.
In the cost to the people who are we now going to call loose squatters, would it be government will sell it to them at the original cost it was then, or are they going to now have to pay market value cost? So, well, let me use an example. 30, 40 years ago, somebody there was a cabinet conclusion to sell it later at $1.50. That person failed to complete and didn't get over the 12-year period. That value now, based on where it is located, the value of it might be at $5 a square foot. What will government be charging that person? The original cost or the value now?
So for persons who have letters from the ministry indicating the cost that government would have approved the land for, that stands. However, the interest may have accumulated on that land. For the informal people who we intend to regularize, they have no letters, and so a determination will be made as to the current cost at which the land will be offered to them for sale.
Thank you, Ms. Draker, for your questions. Mr. Hutchinson,
can I just
do you
get
have
a
another
clarity?
question?
Yeah, just a clarity. So
I have
if a person got it at 150, all they now have to pay is the 150 value and the interest, or there will be another value?
No, we stick by what is in the agreement plus the interest. We are in effect applying the Crown Lands Act. And this is what the Act says, and so we are following through.
Thank you, Ms. Draker. Mr. Hutchinson, you can go ahead.
All right, thank you again. So I know it's a lot of legal terminologies, and I need a little bit of clarity on what we would define occupying as.
So occupying is they are on the land, they may have built a house, they have been living there for, as the government policy is 10 years. They may have been cultivating the land for maybe about the same amount of 10 years and so. So they are in actual, like you're in possession without owning.
Okay. And the last question that I have, do you have requirements in terms of who can acquire, for want of a better word, the Crown lands? Is it that you have to be from a low-income family, or it doesn't matter your economic status? Anyone who falls within the category of occupying lands for more than 10 years, et cetera, qualify to occupy?
The Crown Land Act describes who could apply. It's generally from low-income families. And most of the people we have on the Crown lands are generally within that category. You may have one or two exceptions to the rule, but most are within the low-income category.
Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikey. Do we have any other questions from other members of the media?
Yes. What's the cost of this project to the government of Grenada?
So the budget we have to take us to the end of this year is just about $1 million.
Is that it, Ms. Draker?
So the budget this year is just to cover $1 million targeted in the 2024 budget for that project.
Is if you go to the budget, you will see that there is an allocation in the capital estimates under the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands for $250,000 for land regularization and $250,000 for land administration and management. So currently we have just about $500,000 budgeted. But in putting the project together, we recognize that it would entail much more than what has been budgeted. So the budget so far is about $1 million, and we expect to ask for supplementary appropriation to be able to cover it if we are not able to find monies within the ministry's budget.
And the total number of staff for that project is much?
The total amount of staff is just about 25? About 25. We have about 18 field officers. We are operating in teams of 2 because you're going to people's home to talk about lands, and so we do not want one person to go on their own. So we have 3 teams of 6. So that's 18, and then 3 senior field officers. Then we have the program coordinator, secretary for the program coordinator, a data entry, 2 data entry officers, and IT personnel. Because at the end of the day, we intend to have a computerized system. So that takes us just about 25.
How is that project overlapping on the agriculture census?
It has nothing to do with the census. The agriculture census is about agricultural crops and so outside there. This one is specific to land.
So the agriculture census has no question about the ownership of the land?
They will ask some question, but remember, with the lands, what we are looking for is mostly residential, but they are mostly looking at agricultural lands. Yes, you will ask about the ownership because you want to know how many farmers own the land that they are working, how many are leasing the lands, and how many are just, informal farming on somebody else's land. But we do not see a major overlap.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, we will ask the panelists to just give us some final remarks as we wrap up this morning's proceedings. We will begin with Mr. Talsford. Mr. Alexander, sorry.
Thank you very much. What I would want to encourage at this time is as many persons to take advantage of this opportunity to empower themselves, because if we bring land, labor, and capital together, you can change your economic livelihood, your status in life, through the use of lands that you're currently occupying and you may or may not have the appropriate title. So it can amount to some capital investment and growth opportunities for many citizens. So please make yourself available and utilize the opportunity that is given to you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm encouraging the general public to kindly cooperate with our staff. They will be properly identified. They will be wearing a uniform with a logo, as well as every staff member will be recognized with an ID. So we're asking that you please cooperate. We are here to help you. We'll use whatever tools and resources necessary in order to ensure that Grenadians situate land security. Thank you.
Mrs. Bain Thomas.
So I want to thank our media people for being here with us today. I want to thank you for your questions. And I want to encourage all persons who are currently occupying government lands whether for agricultural or residential purpose or even some commercial purpose, to cooperate fully with the field officers, with our team who are outside there. You can contact us at the Ministry of Agriculture and let us work together so that you can benefit. The program is towards you, the people. At the end of the day, a land title is very important in ensuring your economic and social protection. So let's work together. We will be doing a lot of public relations, a lot of education and sensitization. Listen for the programs, ask questions, educate yourself, obtain copies of the Crown Land Act, the Anti-Squatting Act, the Possessory Title Act, all of these, and let us discuss and let us work together to the successful implementation of the Land Tenure Regularization Program.
Thank you to our panelists, and a special thank you to you, members of the media and the viewing public, for joining us this morning. This brings the curtains down on this morning's proceedings. Do have yourself a wonderful day.